Hi there, everyone. You've got Luke Rowan again, and thanks for joining us for another webinar. Today's topic is all about introducing our new feature for virtual classrooms. It's going to be fun today. Again, we're going to have a look at a demo as we normally do. We're going to talk about why this feature is relevant to each of your learning campaigns, and talk about it in conjunction with some of our other core features. So let's dive in. Many of you that have joined us in the last few weeks would have seen this graphic a few times. So what we've got here is a very simple overview of a blended learning journey. Very typical 8 weeks comprising of quite a few different elements, from video conferencing, which will leverage our new feature of virtual classrooms, along with other elements like microlearning, gamification and leaderboards, some discussion features. And really this map is just our way to tell you that with microlearning and EdApp, you can bring together all of these elements to deliver a very successful blended learning program. And we've seen this done by our largest and most successful clients on the platform. So we're certainly aware that you guys can do the same as well. So walking you through what we've got here, from weeks 1 to 8, we propose micro-learning modules each week. It could be 1 module per week, it could be 3, it could be 5, that's entirely up to you. But the idea is that in week 1, we kick off with some micro-learning, some pre-assessment. In week 2, we jump into a video conference or a face-to-face session. But nowadays, obviously, video conferencing is more and more relevant. Supported with some micro-learning, then some peer discussion, leveraging some of our digital features in EdApp. Weeks 3 and 4, we've got more micro-learning, building upon the knowledge that you would have delivered in week 2. Supported with gamification and leaderboards in weeks 4 and 5. Then dropping in some further peer discussions, which in EdApp is a way for you to simulate a face-to-face discussion between conference attendees, for example, or the participants in the program. So that could be a discussion, it could be an assignment, it's entirely up to you. Then in week 6, we've got a closing video conference, supported by further micro-learning. And then in 7 and 8, we look at closing out the program with micro-learning and activating our feature for spaced repetition, which is all about reiterating information to your learners. So let's have a look at each of these elements a little bit more deeply. And for those of you that have seen this a couple of times already, I apologize, but we're just going to spend 5 minutes on it, having a look at each of the components so that everyone knows what those features are as we go into the demonstration. So number 1 is micro-learning. And per the 2 screens up in the mock-up here, you can see that micro-learning on EdApp it's all about heavily gamified, mobile-first training. So you've got games where you're assessing a learner's knowledge. You've got templates like video, text, narration to really tell a compelling story and educate. And you've also got, which we see on the right-hand side there, the ability to present survey questions. And when we're talking about that learning journey in week 1, we've heard that before you go into a virtual classroom or a conference, it can be very powerful to ask survey questions and leverage that feature on our platform to gather qualitative feedback from your audience as to what they really want to focus on in the video conference. So you can gather that feedback either through a yes/no question like the one presented on screen, where you can request free text. There's quite a few different survey templates that you can leverage to gather information on top of the more traditional assessment topics within the app, whether you're delivering a multiple choice question, asking a learner to kind of convey their knowledge on certain topics with different templates. So lots of ways to present microlearning through weeks 1 to 8. Number 2, why we're here today, virtual classrooms. So our virtual classrooms feature was previewed a couple of weeks ago, and we showed you guys some mock-ups of how it would appear. So we spoke about features where you can set up a conference, and prior to that conference, a learner will see a placeholder in the app, as you can see on the right-hand side, to add that conference to their calendar and save it for future reference. So in this mock journey that we're talking about today, we've got week 2 where we've got a video conference. And for the purposes of the demo, we're going to suggest that we're in week 2 so that we can join a live conference today. In week 6 there, we've got a conference coming up. So the anticipated experience for the learner is that that's in the future. And therefore, when I'm getting accustomed to this particular training seminar or program, I want to be able to save week 6 to my calendar so that I can come back to it in the future. I can be fully aware when that session is activating and join my peers to get involved. In the center there, importantly, is a pop-up. So we have a few automated alerts in the system that will bring the learner right to a conference if either it's coming up in the near future or it's on right now. So that's just a way to improve the user experience. I will also mention that our virtual classrooms feature has been designed to work with all of the leading conference tools, whether it's Zoom, WebEx, Teams, etc. It's just a matter of populating content within the tool, and then you can link seamlessly out to these platforms, but we'll have a look at that in a second. Number 3 here, facilitating discussions. So we have some great features in the platform that allow you to boot up discussions within the platform where learners can contribute to a conversation with either text or video. They can also watch a thread and also hear from a mentor as well, who might weigh in on the conversation to guide it in a certain direction. Leaderboards and gamification, a really important element as you go through the middle part of the program. And this is all about really getting learners engaged, having them compete with their peers. And leaderboards is a feature that many partners use just because it's a bit of fun. It's a great way to drive some competition and peer discussion that really just fuels itself, because obviously we all want to be competitive with our peers. I'll just mention, just stopping there for a second, if anyone has any questions as we go through, I know that we're looking at these elements rather quickly. Just hit the chat and the team will be more than happy to answer your questions. Or we'll present some contact information at the end and we can have a further chat if you'd like to set up a meeting. So we've got gamification here as well, and we have a feature in EdApp that allows you to offer up gift cards to your audience as a way of incentivizing their participation. Obviously, with the right gift card, you can get a great response from your audiences, and it's just another reason for a learner to come back to the app, make sure that they're doing their best, and give them also an opportunity to share their prize potentially with their peers and further fuel that conversation around the fact that you're delivering an amazing program. Assignments is another format of our digital format for delivering conversation in the app. A little bit different from the discussion feature that we showed 2 slides ago. Here, the goal is to ask your learner for a long form written response. And when they submit it, they can then see the responses of their peers. And then as an admin, you have the ability to mark it as a pass or give them a try again and give them some feedback. So not a bad idea when you're in week 5, when you've delivered a bit of knowledge, and you might want to really test the skills of those participating. And number 6 here, wrapping up, Brain Boost is our feature, leveraging spaced repetition. Brain Boost is all about driving knowledge retention. And to do that, we have an algorithm that works in the background of the platform. And the algorithm will look at an individual learner's activity, pick out the elements that they've struggled with, for example, 2 assessment slides that are shown on screen, and reiterate that information to the learner on a daily basis to ensure that they've understood it. And then over time, we'll slowly reduce the frequency of that content as it's satisfied that the learner knows their stuff. So that's everything in that map. As I said before, if anyone wants those slides or wants to talk about them further, let us know and we can take you through. But now we're going to have a look at why we're all here today. We're going to talk about how to set up a virtual conference. So we'll jump into the tool. So just bear with me 1 second. Okie dokie. So what we're looking at right now is the admin and authoring tool. Many of you would be familiar with this screen. And right now, what we have here is a look at some example courses in an account that are relative to that 8-week journey that we just discussed. So we've got weeks 1 to 8. We have a range of courses, 2 microlearning courses at the start, a survey, our web conference for week 2, breakout modules, week 3 to 5. We've got further microlearning to layer on, another breakout module session with that assignment that I mentioned earlier, and another closing conference in week 6. So if I go here to week 2, what we're going to do is have a look at the admin side of things and then have a look at the learner experience so you can connect the dots of the 2 elements. So let's have a look at this setup for this Zoom conference. So to create a Zoom conference or any sort of web conference in the platform, all you need to do is create a course as you would normally with microlearning. And over here on the right-hand side, you've got the ability to either create a micro lesson, create a discussion, an assignment, or our new virtual classroom. So we would just click on that option there. We've already got one set up in the account, so I'll just click on this guy right here. And you can see here that it comprises of very simple elements. We've got the title of the conference. We've got the ability to publish it or not, so that governs whether it will display in the platform. We've got the time, the start time and the end time. Very importantly here that the time that you enter is computed based upon your current time zone. I'm currently on the west coast of the USA. So I've keyed it in for the start time of 8 a.m. on June 10th. And my conference is ending in an hour from now. Secondly, the time that the learner will see in their application will be relative to the time zone set on their device. So everyone's seeing the right time. Obviously, many of you will be delivering virtual conferences to teams that are in different markets and different time zones. So you can rest assured that everyone's going to see the right time on their phone, and when they jump into the conference, they're not going to be a day late or a day early. The second element here is the description. So the description is a way to present a bit of a write-up of what the event is about. But in addition to that, you can also populate with links to grab a phone number, for example, if someone wanted to join by phone. Right, very importantly, down the bottom, we've got the ability to drop in the meeting link. So this is where you would insert the link from Zoom or Teams or WebEx, whatever it is. And that would then boot up the conference when the learner hits on that link. And then finally here, we've got the post-meeting recording. So this is an optional thing, but we really suggest it, giving learners the ability to come back to that recording if it's appropriate. So the way that this works is, because we're currently within the time frame set up for the conference, the learner will be presented with the meeting link so they can join. But when the time passes here, when we get past 9 a.m. On West Coast US time, well, then the learner will be shown the recording. Really simple. That recording is one that you would pull out of Zoom, or in this case, we've published a video to YouTube of a previous webinar. Really simple rules on how that is determined. So I'll jump out of that one. That's really it in terms of setup. Very easy to do. I'll go back to courses and just show you guys in week 6 here, we've got our closing conference in relation to that map that I showed earlier. Again, we've got another virtual classroom event that we've created. We've put in some dates, dropped in some details, really simple. And I'll show you that in the learner experience right now. So let me just fire up my device and we can talk about what the learner sees in this scenario. Okay, I'll just pop in my password there. Hopefully no one saw that one. So now you're seeing my device. Obviously this is a reflection of my phone right now. And we can see all of the courses that we had presented in the admin now set up for the learner experience. So we've got at the top here, one of our new features for banners. So your ability, like any banner on any website, the ability to pull out and promote certain topics. Obviously the webinar is the focal point. So we've got a nice banner there to draw attention to that. Below that, we've got our playlists that represent the various weeks of our blended learning journey. So we've got week 2, which we're currently in, 3 to 5, 6 to 7, 8, and then week 1, which has been in the past. And then below that, we have each of the courses available within those playlists that the learner can walk through. So let's have a look at week 2. Obviously, we just described that we set the webinar up for week 2. And within week 2, we have a few elements. We've got the Zoom conference that we want to join right now. We've got the supporting microlearning module that we can click into. And then we've got those breakout sessions that a learner can participate in when they've finished with the conference, for example. So in this case, we've just set up one conference. You know, you could set up a morning session and an afternoon session. It could be a multi-day thing, really whatever you like. It's completely up to you. So we'll jump into week 2. We'll launch this little link here. And now we can see the landing page for the conference. So very simple to navigate to. I'll just go back and show you that once again. So we're on the home page, tapping on the week 2 playlist. We've got the components of that particular week 2 delivery, tapping on week 2, and then we're launching the conference here. And all of the details that I shared earlier are then presented on the screen. As I said earlier, importantly, the date and the time are presented in local time for the learner. If I just tap on join here up the top, it will then launch the Zoom app. In this case, it could be Teams or whatever other conference platform you're using. And then the learner is within Zoom and Zoom takes over from there. So very, very simple stuff. I'll jump back out of that and get into EdApp. So the idea here is that when this conference will end at 9 o'clock today, these buttons and these links will switch over to be able to view the recording per what we set up. So you can do that. We won't have a look at that now in the essence of time. Jump back into the homepage of the app. And what I want to show you is what is upcoming. So we've got weeks 3 to 5, as I described, which is all about providing more micro-learning and a few gamification features. But in week 6 and 7, we have our closing Zoom conference as part of the program. So if I tap on that session there, launch it, you can then see that these buttons are different in week 6. We have the ability to add this webinar to our calendar and save it for a future date, which is something that obviously you would want your learners doing so that when they come up to the week, they've blocked out that time in their calendar and they're ready to go. So if we just add that one to calendar, it's just going to bring up the standard meeting invite details that you would see on any calendar app, whether you're using iOS or Android. We can add that to our calendar, and that's it. Very, very simple stuff. And then we're back at the start again. If anyone has any questions there as I walk through that, hit the chat, and at the end of the call, we can certainly circle back and have a look to see whether you guys want to walk through that a second time. But for now, I'll just jump out of this demonstration. Hopefully that was clear for everyone involved. Just the one screen for setting up the admin side of things, and then you're over to the app learner experience and you're away. So that concludes our focus on virtual classrooms for today. To close things off, I just wanted to share a little bit about our Slack community for content authors and L&D managers. This community has been really flourishing. It was launched a couple of weeks ago, and already we have many people in the community sharing insights about their microlearning programs, helping one another leverage our authoring tool and get the most out of it. We also have lots of organizations in there posting jobs. If you're a freelancer or a consultancy that's looking for some additional work, we have a lot of organizations in there that are leveraging that community to supplement their learning programs. And we work with some amazing organizations. So there could be some fantastic opportunities in there. Additionally, we've got integration partners in there if anyone's looking for some developer resource to get a job done. And then finally, best practice in microlearning. So we want to always be at the forefront of the conversation around microlearning, and there's many very skilled people in there. So if you wanted to join that community and you want me to steer you in the direction of it, feel free to hit me up at luke@edapp.com, or if you're in the UK, speak to Jamie. You can see his email address there, and we'll try and get the team to post that link to the community in the chat right now, if you're interested to jump on right away. So that brings us to the end of today. A very short session. Hopefully everyone understood what we were trying to bring across there. We'll have a look at the Q&A just for a second to make sure that everyone's questions have been answered, and read out any opportunities for the crowd. So we've got a nice question here about whether this feature is available to registered app members. So the feature is available to all customers. So we have various enterprise level tiers, and we have self-service tiers. So the feature is available on those. You will also be able to access a free trial on the platform for 30 days if you wanted to try it out for free as well. So you will be able to engage with these features right away if you open your account. So there's a nice question here about compatibility with live streaming features. The simple answer is yes. As you can see in the setup, you're simply publishing a link to an external platform. So when the learner activates that link, they're being taken to that external platform, whether that's a Facebook stream or a Google stream. It's entirely up to you as to which platform you'd like to use. Yes, absolutely. Another question here about Google Meetings. Yes, absolutely. A good question here about, do we recommend delivering the breakouts during the virtual classroom sessions? That's entirely up to you. From the campaigns that I've seen, I think that it's great to provoke some discussion among your audience while they're in a conference. And as an admin, you'll be able to see that activity live, which might be a great way for you to enhance the delivery of that virtual classroom, given that you can read out some statements, you can have a look at the sentiment on certain topics as you're working through. I think that leveraging these features in conjunction with one another is certainly could be used to great effect. Just a question here about looking at some other functionality on the platform. If anyone wants a demo of the other features that we have, just shoot us an email. You can see our contact emails on screen there, and we'd be happy to set up a session for you. If you wanted to speak to an instructional designer for some more involved tuition on how to use our authoring tool, we can set that up in a very kind of preliminary way as well. Okay, it looks like we've covered off all of the major questions there. If anyone has any final thoughts before we wrap up, feel free to hit that chat, or yeah, we'll be on our way.